Good evening, welcome to Business Live. Coming up in this edition, Bank of Ghana assures of instituting measures to deal and reduce fraud cases in the banking and financial sector.
It's not just the publishing of the reports. Before we get to publishing of the reports, ongoing basis, there are structures that we have put in place to handle these things.
Following an IMF staff visit, Professor of Finance at Andrews University, Professor William Tripa, says Ghana's economy will witness a major boost if it fulfills all the requirements of the IMF program.
What we expect in an economy is a form of stability. And that is the signal that we are getting now, knowing that people can now plan that within the shortest possible time.
Plus, fraudsters steal over 26 million Ghana cedis from mobile money customers and even more from some banks. We will update you on the new Bank of Ghana's report. We have details of these and many others coming your way shortly. Please stay. I am Pius Kojobaka. Let's now settle for the details. Professor of Finance at Andrews University, Professor William Tripa, says Ghana's economy would witness a major boost if it is able to fulfill all the requirements of the IMF program. His comment follows the conclusion of a one-week staff visit to Ghana, where the IMF team indicated that they observed a recovery economy. Now, however, Professor Tripa says the country's external debt needs must be structured.
We've noticed a reduction in inflation rate. Remember, around December 2022, it was about 54.1%. Just having the IMF deal, we've noticed that it slowed down to about 42.2% in May. This showed a relatively a reduction in the inflation rate. So you see that the rate of growth is rather coming down. When we look at the exchange rate situation to that high volatility in December, we've seen that it has come down. We see it gives up some kind of confidence to traders, knowing that the exchange rate is not going to be changing rapidly or frequently as we saw in December. So that kind of stability is what we are expecting to see. I'm sure as we go forward and be able to fulfill all the other aspects of the program, we will see a major impact in the economy. Let me put it in this way. What we expect in an economy is a form of stability. And that is the signal that we are getting now, knowing that people can now plan that within the shortest possible time. Our standard debt position from the data from Bank of Ghana, which is about 28.4 billion, really need to be restructured. During the IMF negotiation, we saw the Paris Club and the other creditors coming together to give an assurance to Ghana. Ghana may have to quicken that kind of negotiation with these parties and to be able to have a conclusion. From the data, we need to secure about a 10 billion form of debt restructuring from both domestic and external. We noticed that the domestic one has been done, but the external one we have not even started or concluded. we really need to know how that debt of 28.4 billion will be restructured.
Now, the Bank of Ghana has assured that it has taken the necessary measures to deal and reduce fraud cases in the banking sector. It comes after a new report by the Bank of Ghana revealed that banks lost more than 50 million cedis in losses from fraud and over 20 million cedis from mobile money transactions in 2022. Dr. Joseph Franz is head of financial stability at the central bank.
It's not just the publishing of the reports. Before we get to publishing of the reports, ongoing basis, there are structures that we have put in place to handle these things. But I always say that you are dealing with stakeholders, and that most of them are, you can't handle them. So it's better you educate the public to do the right thing than to leave them, for them to grope in the dark and invent themselves. So asking them with the right information or empowering them with the right information, we think it's better than just leave it there.
All right, so let's make sense out of these numbers thrown to us by the Bank of Ghana. Let's get on to Zoom and speak to a senior finance lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Benjamin Amwa, for more on this. Pleasure, you could join us on Business Live. Now, I'm pretty sure you're wondering what these numbers mean, but really, what do you make of these figures coming from the Bank of Ghana on fraud-related cases?
Thank you. The figures from the operational risk perspective, and especially if you consider the fact that banks are intermediating and the competitive nature of the financial market space, is not surprising. Not surprising in the sense that, around the globe, and if you follow the report from PwC on what we call financial fraud, and in essence, bank fraud, it has been increasing. This is not to say that it is good if you have reported bank fraud cases in Ghana. It's a case of concern for every individual because we all transact in one way or the other with the bank. So for the issues of fraud within the banking sector space, it's not strange. It's not strange. What we need to be looking at is what are the institutions doing to combat the fraud, and what is the regulator doing to help both the institution and the client of the banks to help deal with these menace that will not end, because it is part of the banking sector architecture that exists in every economy.
Even before we delve into the operations of the Bank of Ghana and addressing these challenges, should we be worried seeing the numbers? Because, as you rightly mentioned, the cases keep increasing.
Yes, if you look at last year compared to 2021, you see that the loss suffered, the actual loss suffered has decreased between 2021 and 2022. But on the other hand, the attempted fraud cases has increased. And that is where we need to be worried, because see, the more these fraudsters attempt, the higher the likelihood that they may succeed. So as we see a lot of attempted attacks, fraudulent attacks on the bank, then one need to be worried. So yes, your concern for us to worry is justified, although in terms of the actual value, 2022 was better compared to 2021. The numbers are worrying. And again, we expect our banks and the central bank to do more in fighting bank fraud.
Let's talk about the staff involvement in these fraud cases. Well, some will say it raises a lot of questions about the kind of people managing our funds.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. This is an operational risk issue. And when you are employing the employee, you cannot look in the face of the employee to say that, no, this is what the employee is going to do. So there is some information asymmetry in there between who you are employing and what the person may turn out to be in terms of deviant behavior. And in this case, you are talking with respect to the fraud. So clearly, the banks have a responsibility on dealing with employee-related fraud. And here, the banks must be tough, must be strict, and must be hard on employee-related fraud that are successful and even attempted bank fraud that are committed by employees or employees and other outsiders. Because if you cannot trust the employees, then definitely you are in trouble. So yes, banks must do more, banks must educate employees, and banks must be tough on employees who are complicit in some of these cases.
And what do you tell those who are worried that this could affect the confidence in the banking sector?
Absolutely, it's a genuine concern. You cannot be banking with an institution that day in, day out has issues related to fraud. The reputational risk itself that the banks themselves suffer. Vis-a-vis the fact that for me, a client of the bank, I can't have my peace because I've been told that saving my money at home is risky. So I'm better off saving with a financial institution. And sadly for me to say that these same financial institutions are themselves exposed, then clearly one is justified to be worried. But what we can be assured of is that in many instances, so long as the customer did not contribute in any way to the fraud, the customer is exonerated. That is where we can have some level of relief. But again, the banks have a responsibility to educate their employees and not just stop there, to also educate the public. Because in many instances, it is out of the negligence of the client or the customers who give the lead or some of the leads to these fraudsters to attack the bank. So all of us within that space will have to be educated. And BOG must also educate us, the public, on what to do and what not to do so that we can make the space a little bit safe for all of us.
Dr. Amoah, I know for sure the number of times the Bank of Ghana has come out with public notices by way of educating and, of course, sensitizing public on some of these fraudsters. But beyond that, what more should we be doing basically to deal with this issue?
Behind the scenes, I believe Bank of Ghana is having interactions with all the service providers within the banking industry. And you see, if you look at the nature of banking now, the nature of banking now is not the solely brick and mortar, a branch over there that you are going to bank with. Now, even at your home, in your bedroom, at your workplace, you can bank because you have a lot of service providers who are providing one form of the value chain service within the banking space. So it is more now because we have a lot of flexibility and convenience in terms of banking. On the other hand, what is happening is that this has also exposed or opened up the regulatory responsibility of the central bank. They're talking about system integration. They're talking about a whole lot of work that must be done to make sure that the banking space is safe for all. Bank of Ghana must keep on educating us, releasing the report, and Bank of Ghana must also sanction these banks that are noted, or these institutions that are noted for allowing themselves to be defrauded, if I can put it this way, so that it will cost them more and they'll be forced to do the right thing. Again, today they can use artificial intelligence to also support because the volume of transactions now are more than what it used to be. So if technology can be deployed within that space, then it will enhance the quality of report and analysis to be done on the report to identify suspicious activities which can trigger an investigation to keep some of these activities from taking place.
Dr. Benjamin Amoah, we are indeed grateful for your insight this very moment, helping us appreciate the latest trend from the Bank of Ghana. A while longer in the financial space, and telcos have begun undertaking major modifications to their security systems, especially on mobile money apps, after the Bank of Ghana fraud report on banks, specialized deposit-taking institutions, and payment service providers revealed mobile money scammers made away with customers' money totaling 26 million cedis from 12,166 cases in 2022. Now, as part of the fraud on the mobile money platforms, it also revealed that banks recorded 2,998 fraud cases, with 188 bank staff involved. Now, forgery and manipulation of documents were prominent, with a total of 33 million Ghana cedis stolen. My colleague Mami Esi Nyamicha Thompson has excerpts of the report.
The Bank of Ghana's fraud report reflects trends in fraud typologies observed in relation to services provided by banks, specialized deposit-taking institutions, SDIs, and payment service providers, PSPs. In 2022, there were 2,998 attempted fraud cases in the banking and SDI sectors compared to 2,347 in 2021, a 27.74% rise. Meanwhile, overall lost value in 2022 was roughly 56 million Ghana cedis, down from 61 million Ghana cedis in 2021. This represents a 7.88% reduction from 2021. Forgery and manipulation of papers, fraudulent withdrawals, check fraud, cyber, email, and cash fraud were the most common that affected most institutions. Forgery and document manipulation emerged as the most prominent fraud category. This resulted in the loss of 33 million cedis. Another issue that is on the rise is fraudulent withdrawal. This includes money being illegally removed from consumers' accounts, resulting in losses of 7 million Ghana cedis with the assistance of bank and SDI workers. Check fraud resulted in a loss of 5 million Ghana cedis. Cloned checks were the most prevalent. According to the study, all fraud reports by payment service providers in 2022 were mobile money related, totaling 27 million Ghana cedis. Some recoveries were achieved as a result of this, lowering the actual loss to 26 million Ghana cedis.
All right, it is important we hear from the chamber as well. And joining us is the Chief Executive Officer of the Telecoms Chamber, Engineer Dr. Kenneth Ashigbe, on the back of this. Pleasure you could join us on Business Live. Now, there's been some reduction in fraud with electronic payment system. What could be the factors underpinning this feat, you would say?
Well, thank you very much. If you look at the reduction in the numbers, it's quite marginal, about 1% in terms. But if you look at the value, the value went up, So, and this is 2022's report that we're looking at. So a lot of things have happened. One of them is that post-COVID, the number of people who now use mobile money and digital platforms have really ballooned. The numbers have increased. Be it that e-levy came and put a bit of a damper on it, but it has increased. And the people financial inclusion has also improved. So people who did not use to use the service are also, the numbers have gone up. And we still in our country, the level of cyber hygiene is quite low. There are some particular adverts that have been running on most of your media houses telling us about the fact that, don't give out your pins and all of that, but you still find people falling prey to these practices. And then you also have a lot more older people also beginning and using the services where they are not able to use the service themselves, but they have to depend on other people to help them do that. And some of those also now become vulnerable and people fall prey to these scammers. But the increasing, and most of the fraud that you find in our country is out social engineering. And you have a lot, these fraudsters becoming very sophisticated and changing their modus operandi. As you find an old one, then they change the way they're working. So all of that is accounting for the challenges that have been faced insofar as this mobile money incidents are concerned. And so what you also would have to do in this situation is that in our country, we need to increase the level of the awareness creation. We need to increase the education that we do. We need to also be able to show people some of these new fraud typologies that are coming up so that we get our people becoming a lot more questioning. And not just allowing themselves to fall prey to this. Another challenge that also has been with us for a while is sometimes the greed of people, and these fraudsters tend to feed on that. And so the situations where people would not have participated in any promotion at all, but you hear people their calls, then they said, oh, you want this and you need to send this. That's also another thing that has happened. E-commerce has also increased and ballooned a lot. And so you also have had the situations where people would clone other websites and then pretend to be selling things. So the fraud itself might not be mobile money fraud, but the person will lose his money because he would have made payments using mobile money fraud, only to find out that the product that he thought he was buying, the website that he thought he was buying from, was actually not the real one, and so the person would have lost his money. So all of these things are the reasons why you have seen though the numbers have gone down, the value have gone up because the levels, the quantum of the transactions that are involved in them have also gone up.
Indeed, we have to curb that menace over time. But I'm wondering what more we can do. When I say what we can do, I'm referring to the Bank of Ghana and, of course, its stakeholders to address this issue beyond the education, because a number of times we've seen the Bank of Ghana come out with various, warnings and sensitization programs to educate the public on some of these activities. Beyond that, what can we do, especially now that we've seen some sort of technological advancement by way of AI now stepping in?
Well, you had Prof talk about this use of AI to be able to do, to deal with the issues of fraud. Yes, the fraudsters would want to use AI, but the industry has been ahead of the use of AI in dealing with this. You notice that sometimes when these fraudsters send you a text message or something, you see what you would think are mistakes that they have made in there. They're spelling your name and they don't spell, or they're writing some things and they're changing it. The reason why they do that is that you have bots crawling over all of these messages, and it would flag suspicious messages and catch them out. It's the reason why they then do these mistakes to want to be able to beat it. In the past, where you are not using tools that were intelligent, that could learn, then you could beat them. But now with the coming in of AIs, with the models being trained on all of these things, it's going to make it better for being able to arrest some of these particular fraud types. Then also with the mobile, the SIM registration, the 31st May deadline, and cleaning the networks, a lot of these numbers that are going to go off would belong to these fraudsters who knew that they could do these things and get away because you could not trace them well. So that is also going to curb it. But we need to be wary about that, because another new thing we're beginning to see is that they are exploiting the gullibility of some of us Ghanaians. So they come to you and they give you 50 cedis, 30 cedis. Let's use your Ghana card. Let's go with you and go and register. What will happen is that they will use these SIM cards with your name and your biometrics and perpetuate the fraud, and then it will be traced back to you. So it's important that we continue the education. But the education cannot stop. So what, for us at the Chamber, we've begun to do with our members is that we're changing the way we do the education, not just above the top, using the media and all of that, but going into particular places. So last year, for example, during the Cybersecurity Month, we took the training closer to the children in the wireless cluster of schools. We did fraud training for those in upper primary, and in GHS. Then we went to Thomas Aquinas and did the same for them. And then we also did for the parents of these children. So we need to now start taking targeted training to people. There's a conversation going on between the Chamber and the Deputy Minister for Communication and Digitalization to train pensioners. Because another major challenge is that you have these old folks who maybe their eyes are beginning to fail them. Some of them might not be literate. And so because of that, they would want somebody to be handling their transactions for them. And then, in the process, they get scammed. So how do we help train them? But not only that, we need to start also bringing in technology
in 30 seconds.
that enable people to also be able to do these things on their own.
We are grateful, Dr. Ken Ashigbe, for your time here on Business Life. He's the Chief Executive of the Chamber of Telecommunications, speaking to us there. All right, so that is it for the program for tonight. I am Pius Kojo Baka. You can always get business stories when you log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Always a pleasure serving you. Do enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.